Significant developments today in Tottenham's pursuit of Richarlison, as they have reportedly opened talks with Everton over a move for the Brazilian forward. They've drawn down £100 million of the £150 million investment from ENIC, and Everton quickly approach tight deadlines for them to meet the criteria to not break financial fair play rules. It's a big day for Tottenham, and hopefully there's even bigger days to come. If you are new to the channel, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you want more updates throughout Tottenham's transfer window, and click that notification bell as well so you get notified every time we upload or go live. We got some channel members in the chat. We got Christopher, Tony, Zoe. Good to see you. We got a new channel member as well, Mr. Jack Nicky. Thank you very much for joining the channel membership, Jack. You're a massive supporter of the channel, and I really appreciate it. If you want to pop in the link to your channel in the chat, Jack, I'd recommend to everybody that they go over there to get the lowdown on Tottenham's latest transfer targets. But before we do dive into the Richarlison news, just to give a bit more detail on what I said there about the £100 million drawn down by Tottenham. So as we all know, a little over a month ago, ENIC committed £150 million to Tottenham. It was said all of that will be used for transfers. There was a lot of doubt about that. 2/3 of that has today been drawn down by Tottenham and pledged in its entirety to the summer transfer window. So that's £100 million at the bare minimum that Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici will have in their war chest. Alistair Gold is the man who's told us this, and he has emphasised that this is the first chunk. He said the remaining £50 million can be drawn later. So it's a massive commitment today from ENIC. We'll go. Alistair saying no, it said investment on and off the pitch. It did, but the £100 million today is purely for the summer transfer window. No, there's no off the pitch investment or on off the pitch. It's purely for transfers. And Damien saying, what about the other 50 million? That is still available for Paratici and Conte to draw down at a later date. We'll go into much more detail on that in a little bit, but I know everyone is keen to hear the latest on Richarlison, and there's been quite a few updates on him today. The first one comes from the Bobble, El Bobble, who, as far as I can gather, is the Everton version of Paul O'Keefe on Twitter, with some very, very good inside information on Everton. And even Paul O'Keefe himself tweeted about what the Bobble had to say, and he said that Tottenham have now opened up talks with Everton for Richarlison. So this bid that we were expecting for Raphinha, for Richarlison, what we were kind of waiting for Tottenham to make that next step in this deal, it looks as though Tottenham have today done that by opening talks to sign Richarlison. Fabrizio Romano said that Tottenham are well informed on Richarlison, as his name was discussed during Everton talks for Harry Winks. And the key update from Fabrizio Romano is that Richarlison is open to the Spurs move. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, the other teams that seem to have an interest in Richarlison, at the moment he's not a priority for them. And if their priorities go well, he will never be another target for them. Josh, I've seen that news about Paratici's meeting. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But good as always to see you in the live chat. So Tottenham at the moment look to potentially have a clean run on Richarlison, a player that that wants to move to Tottenham. So this is one that could really materialise in the next week or so. Again, we'll talk about Everton's financial situation in a bit more detail. David Ornstein has said that Tottenham's main attacker target is Everton's Richarlison. He said, with regards to the other teams interested, Chelsea are focusing on Raheem Sterling and trying to bring him in for Manchester City. Arsenal are now the firm favourites to sign Raphinha. So that's probably us out of the Raphinha race. Not that that's exactly a big setback, I would say. We've always said Richarlison suits what we need a lot better. But Raphinha is a very good player. I would have liked him at Tottenham. He's a good signing for Arsenal, but I think Richarlison would have been our number one choice anyway. And with Chelsea focusing on Raheem Sterling, I think Chelsea were probably our biggest competitor in this move. Reports yesterday that they'd made an opening bid for Richarlison, but if they're focusing on Raheem Sterling, I would question how serious that bid was, if it even went in the first place. With regards to Everton's financial situation, so Zeus, I'm sure everyone knows from Twitter, said that Everton, for financial fair play reasons, would like any big sale done before June 30th, the end of the current financial year, expecting these talks to ramp up with both parties keen to accelerate. So Everton are open to selling Richarlison for the right price. They would be happy to do so. And they're pretty much in a similar situation to what Inter Milan are in, where they need these sales to be done before the 30th of June. Before 5 days from now, before next Wednesday. So you'd expect this to accelerate as quickly as possible, which ties into Charlie Eccleshare's report that Tottenham want to replace Bergwijn before he goes on or after the 1st of July. So I kind of mentioned it yesterday, certain things were starting to fall into place. That has continued a lot more today. And we could be set to see a very quick deal with Everton for Richarlison. To give a bit more detail on that, Paul O'Keefe has tweeted a screenshot of a message he got saying, from a regulatory and business point of view, June 30th remains a date of real significance for Everton Director of Football Kevin Thelwell and co. As the end of the current financial year and thus the latest financial fair play cycle too. That date marks the final day in which incomings and outgoings can be added to Everton's 2021-22 profit and loss calculation. So Everton, really, as they have been for quite a while, on the edge of their financial fair play allowances, and we know Burnley and Leeds had spoken about potentially starting legal action over Everton and their financial fair play, given that one of those clubs was gonna go down in the place that they felt maybe Everton deserved to be. Paul O'Keefe, that message continues, saying the bulk of Everton's incomings for this window will have to be done after June 30th. With so little wiggle room, the focus for the next few days will be on bringing in money and further reducing costs. So as they try to get a Harry Winks deal done, Gabriel, thank you for subscribing. As they focus on getting Harry Winks in, that may have to wait, and it may have to wait until Richarlison goes the other way to join Tottenham Hotspur. I have a few articles here that I want to go through to kind of give a bit of an analysis on Richarlison. So I've one done. One here from psganalysis.com for this season, and there's another that was written towards the end of last season about Richarlison playing as a striker rather than a winger under Carlo Ancelotti. So this first one from PSG Analysis, they say that Richarlison scored 10 goals for Everton in the Premier League this season. They were in a relegation battle until the penultimate game. In addition to the 10 goals, he also had 5 assists, meaning he was responsible for 34.88% of the team's goals this season, which is a massive percentage of the Everton goals to be involved in. He's happy being the focal point. He's confident in being that main man and being able to supply when he is. He scored at a rate of 0.33 goals per 90 against an XG per 90 of 0.31, so ever so slightly overperforming that XG. Richarlison attempted nearly 5 shots per game for the Toffees this season with a success rate of just over 60%. The 25-year-old managed to hit nearly 1/3 of his shots on target. So not setting the world alight with those numbers, but they're fairly decent numbers anyway. Yet for all his attacking output at Goodison Park this season, it is the defensive work rate of Richarlison that stood out. He was successful in 76% of the defensive actions he attempted. According to FBref, the 25-year-old Brazilian ranks in the top 10% or higher for forwards in the following categories: pressures per 90, perfect for Tottenham; tackles per 90, perfect for Tottenham; interceptions per 90, perfect for Tottenham; blocks and clearances per 90, which I hope wouldn't really come into much consideration for Spurs. The current front three of Kylian Mbappe, let's talk about PSG and his how we fit in there. There's a shot map for Richarlison here. 3 of his 10 goals came from the penalty spot. Every single goal of his came from inside the box, so he's a poacher. He likes to work in and around that penalty area. He missed a few chances which had an XG of 0.5 or over. Overall took 70 shots, meaning he had a conversion rate of 7 shots per goal scored, which with 5 shots per game is a goal every 1.3 games, I suppose. Operating on the left wing, Richarlison cut inside frequently from the flank and created threats, which fits really, really well into what Tottenham will be trying to do if Richarlison is out on the wing. I think Liverpool have been very well known for it in recent years, where their focal point up top, usually Roberto Firmino next season, will probably be Darwin Núñez. Doesn't operate as a typical striker. He kind of drops deep, and those wingers are able to cut in, which Richarlison has done for Everton this season and has done quite well. He made one carry into the penalty area per game this season for Everton. The 25-year-old also drew 2.96 fouls per 90, which ranks him in the top 8%. Awesome all with the super chat with $5. Thanks very much for that, my friend. I appreciate it. Says, the question is, who is better between Richarlison and Stevie B if he's to replace him? I believe that Raphinha is better than the two of them. I wouldn't say there's any question that Richarlison is better than Steven Bergwijn. Even if you want to question the talent and the ability that they have in terms of what they can do in the Premier League, I think that's beyond any doubt that Richarlison just is better than Steven Bergwijn in that. I would agree with you that Raphinha is a better player than both of them. I've said that all along. But Richarlison, I think, is just more what Tottenham are looking for at this point in time. More versatile and really able to switch with any of those front three players that we have at our disposal at the moment. So I would say Richarlison is better than Stevie B, but I'm not exactly concerned that Raphinha is better than Richarlison, because he's just a better fit. As Zakalway says, he's all about versatility. Charles, thanks for the kind words. Carrying on with this in the analysis, there's a pass sonar here, XT timeline, which I don't know what that is. He regularly created an XT value of 0.5 or greater throughout the match. XT, does it explain it? It doesn't, it probably should. Or expected threat is what that is. So the 25-year-old Brazilian created threats in the final third and the opposition's penalty area on a regular basis. And look, we talk about Richarlison there having, 5 assists for Everton last season, which doesn't really stand out as a crazy return, but you have to take into consideration the players that he was playing with. A Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who I'm pretty sure was injured for a lot of the season and struggled to hit form elsewhere, with an Anthony Gordon, who is a very good prospect for the future, but kind of still trying to acclimatise and find his feet in the Premier League. If he's creating that many threats in and around the penalty area, you would imagine those assist numbers are naturally going to be inflated when it is Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, and/or Dejan Kulusevski on the receiving end of those threatening passes. So the 5 assists might not look as good, but when you kind of add that context into it, he looks more and more like a better addition for Tottenham. Richarlison largely carried an underachieving Everton side this season to safety. He might be a very good replacement for the outgoing Angel Di Maria. Just kind of talk about again his adaptability to PSG. But look, from that article, the 2 main things that I take is very good expected threat and very good work off the ball as well. Which are 2 things that we need in that Tottenham team. We want to press from the front. We want to be actively trying to retrieve that ball in the attacking third, in the midfield third. And Richarlison is a player who will run all day and try and do that. And everyone is always mentioning him playing with Christian Romero after the antics, shall we say, of last season. I always had the picture of Romero taking out Richarlison here, but I felt, because it's looking more and more likely that he will be a Spurs player next season, I'm kind of I want a more flattering picture there for him, which is very similar to the Emerson Royale picture that we all love after the North London derby. Another article here from BreakingTheLines.com, which is written in March of last year, so in the tail end of last season, about how his role has changed since being deployed as a striker. And I do think that is very relevant to what Tottenham will be getting if we manage to bring him in this week, because that versatility, like I mentioned, he's not just going to be on either flank. He could be played in the striker role. And I know Antonio Conte has said that unless Harry Kane physically can't go onto the pitch, he will be on the pitch. And that's fine, but there's no guarantee that there won't be moments where he can't go on the pitch. There may be moments where we do need Richarlison to play that. It could be in games where we don't want to risk Harry Kane. If it's a cup game against a lower league opposition or something like that, we may not want Kane to be out there. We may play Richarlison then, or again if Harry Kane is injured at any point. Before we do get into the second analysis, as Pam says there in the chat, only 80 likes. Come on, folks, press the like button. Pam, first of all, fantastic to see you in the live chat. But as Pam says, make sure to smash that like button. We've got 700 watching. I'm sure we can get that number to 200 as soon as possible. But look, let's dive into Richarlison as a forward. Under the stewardship of one of this era's defining managers in Carlo Ancelotti, Everton have taken considerable strides, blah, blah, blah. That's gone and that's over. During his time at Watford, Richarlison had proven himself to be one of the brightest young talents in the Premier League during his breakout season, which following several seasons at Everton have graduated to reported interest from Catalan giants Barcelona, who, it's easy to forget, made a bid of £100 million for Richarlison a couple of years ago that somehow was turned down. Since signing from the Hertfordshire-based club, the attacking player has highlighted his versatility, being used across the entire front line by both Ancelotti and his predecessor, Marco Silva. For a large part of this season, Richarlison has been played in his favoured left-wing position, despite the Italian's constant tinkering to Everton's setup throughout the season. In recent weeks, system changes and an injury to Dominic Calvert-Lewin has seen Richarlison operating as a striker. This article will look at that, blah, blah, blah. The main areas that will be focused on: Richarlison's role out of possession, in attacking transitions, and in the attacking third. 3 things that are very, very crucial to a forward that you want to bring in at Tottenham. So first of all, out of possession, Everton set up in a variety of formations, demonstrating tactical flexibility and a willingness to change the team's shape in response to the opposition and the players available. The tactical flexibility has endured during Richarlison's stint as a striker, with the Merseyside outfit changing between a 4-3-1-2, a 4-1-2-1-2, and 3 at the back formations, again, relevant to Spurs. When Everton have been setting up in a 4-3-1-2 out of possession, the team has been structured in a narrow 4-3-3 shape out of possession, designed to emphasise compactness between the lines. Richarlison has been operating on the left of the front three in this system, as shown by the above visual and as demonstrated during game against Man United. So operating in that front three, even when they're in possession, it's not quite that front three, it's a 4-3-1-2. Out of possession, being in that front three is what you would expect of him at Tottenham as well. Richarlison's main role in this system out of possession, in conjunction with the other two forwards, which are usually his strike partner and the number 10, is to block the passing lanes into key central areas and to cover spaces laterally, two key components of Ancelotti's use of the narrow 4-3-3 shape out of possession. So by kind of blocking that those passing lanes and covering the spaces laterally, I think that's something that's really important to Tottenham. And one certain fixture that I think we always do that in, and it's always proved very beneficial for us, is when we play against Manchester City. Now look, I don't think that'll be the case next season when they have Erling Haaland up top, because what we like to do in those games is allow as much space as we wanted out wide, but really fill the central areas, which prevented the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, if he was on the pitch and getting in possession, especially those kind of half spaces in between or kind of just outside the box, where Kevin De Bruyne in particular likes to work. So that's what Richarlison has been doing or was doing at Everton under Carlo Ancelotti. As the first line of defence when the opposition's defenders are in possession, Richarlison's role of blocking passes into the central areas from the defenders on his side of the pitch disrupts the central progression of the ball into the so-called golden areas of the pitch excuse me, to the midfielders and forwards, instead forcing the opposition to focus build-up play wide initially or recycle the ball in areas where it is not dangerous, which is exactly what you want. They're not going to score from their right back getting on the ball deep or the left centre back having to play a long pass 99% of the time. Furthermore, his athleticism, intensity to his play, and knowledge of pressing triggers make him an effective presser, allowing him to cover spaces laterally to his side when the ball is in play there or upon certain triggers higher up the pitch. There's an image there where he's doing that against Wan-Bissaka. This is structurally important as the narrow nature of the system employed by Ancelotti requires the wider players in the two blocks of three to cover wider areas, in an attempt to prevent the ceding of too much time and space to opposition-wide players. Again, perfect fit for Spurs. Supporting the notion of Richarlison's effective press are his pressing statistics, which highlight him in the 82nd percentile for successful pressures when compared to other forwards in the Premier League last season. Both of these skills require tactical discipline, a skill that the Brazilian forward has in abundance. In an Antonio Conte system, having that tactical nous, that tactical discipline, the tactical knowledge of a player like Richarlison is absolutely fantastic. Loves music with the £4.50 super chat. Thanks very much for that. Another fantastic support of the channel. It says, "Hey Matt, bit late, just seen Tanguy loan an option to buy to Galatasaray. Any truth? Come on, you Spurs." There have been a few reports in the last couple of days, and I haven't seen any come from reliable sources. But what I always say when there's news like this coming out from 3, 4, 5 Turkish sources, I feel like you kind of have to take that seriously. And I don't know what the kind of journalistic setup is there, or how the likes of Alistair Gold, Fabrizio Romano, the sources that we'd be used to listening to, whether they would get that information from that side of things. What I will say is with Japhet Tanganga last year and his potential move to Galatasaray, as far as I can remember, Alistair Gold is the only real journalist that was on top of that. So it's very possible something is materialising on that side of things, and I would be surprised if there's nothing to it. I'm not sure about a deal agreed or an offer accepted, but there's almost definitely interest in talks going on from what we're hearing, is what I say. I'll bring one of those reports to you a little bit later in the show, but thank you very much for the super chat. With Richarlison, the way he plays centrally, how does this differ from when Everton used him as a left winger? Positionally, Richarlison is taking up a narrower and higher position out of possession, where he would typically be completing a more man-oriented job of tracking and pressing the opposing fullback. A subsequent impact of this change will typically mean Richarlison does stay higher up, which, as noted later in the article, forms a central part of the additional threat he carries within this system. However, whether by design or through Richarlison's natural tendencies as a winger, he has continued to provide Luca Dean with defensive support, particularly during times the opposition is sustaining attacks, and Everton retreat into a low block with limited spacing between the three units. So he's good at the defensive support there as well. On attacking transitions, which again is so crucial to the way Tottenham play, although we'd rather be a team who are more dominant in possession, we're not that at the moment, but we still have that threat off the ball. Richarlison's higher starting point has meant that he's become an early target in attacking transitions, passing into the vacated space where either the fullback has pushed on or the inside channel between fullback and centre-back, where Everton can release him into space or isolate him against an opposing defender. In the early exchanges of the United game, this was a tactic employed deliberately to help release pressure on Everton and progress the ball. So I suppose he's a little bit different to the kind of outball that Harry Kane offers us, in that as that focal point, as that main striker, Kane would like to drop deep, hold up the possession, and then, kind of from within his own half, try and ping those passes. Whereas with Richarlison, we can absolutely fire that ball forward. Richarlison will run onto it, and it's still effectively the same thing, where he's holding up play, waiting for people to get into positions, but it's much higher up the pitch, and it's in, I suppose, a less dangerous position for Tottenham. There's a few times where Harry Kane has come deep and lost possession. I remember against Arsenal earlier this season, and a few years ago at Old Trafford, he lost possession in a 1-0 defeat there. We probably wouldn't run that risk with Richarlison, because that hold of play would be happening much higher up the pitch. In certain circumstances, Richarlison can thrive and utilise his skill set that he has developed playing as a winger. The 23-year-old is quick, well balanced, and can dribble both ways due to being able to use his weaker left side comfortably, meaning he's very difficult to defend against when he's carrying the ball, a threat that Son has used very much to his advantage this season. He's also fairly explosive in the way in which he can stand up and take on the defender. When in transition, he's also typically taking up similar positions to what he would have been if he was playing as a winger, attacking the defender at similar angles. As such, his role in quick transitions and more chaotic phases of play are relying on skills that he has honed on the wings, effectively playing to his strengths. At times, it is evident that Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin need to be more aware of the other's position as they seek to work in tandem in transitions. The Englishman is very strong in the air and can be an option for more direct play into him, often winning the first flick on and holding the ball up, or creating a second ball opportunity to retain position in the opposition half. So from this, in the way that Richarlison likes to work on the transition, you can see that, first of all, he's a fairly decent option to have instead of Kane, but he also will work very well with Kane. Playing with that focal point like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, having the experience of running off the shoulder when that ball is coming in high to Harry Kane. Look at especially at the two goals, Kulusevski's goal and Son's second goal against Aston Villa in that 4-0 win earlier this season. In both these situations, Richarlison needs to anticipate these opportunities and situate himself closer to Calvert-Lewin to collect the ball in these scenarios. It's more to talk about their compatibility. It is important to note the counter-attacking approach employed by Everton during these games, with the majority of these games coming up against opposition harbouring similar, if not loftier, ambitions in the Premier League this season. Subsequently, there's more space available to counter in, as both Manchester clubs play more expansive football, which provides Richarlison more space on the counter. So he could be an option if we're again playing a City or a Liverpool or a Chelsea who might come out and try and attack us, as opposed to a Bournemouth or a Forest or a Brentford who might sit back a little bit more. These type of match conditions will allow Richarlison to thrive centrally, whereas playing against a low block with limited space, the young Brazilian's ability to play as a striker will require greater refinement when he will be operating in tighter spaces and having to be more physical in his approach, as demonstrated by his ineffectiveness at times against Burnley, for example, who defend in a low block. So I put the link to that article down in the description when the stream is over, if anyone does want to go on and read the rest of that. For now, we're going to look at the latest on Raphinha, who looks set to be joining Arsenal, which, like I said, is a good signing for Arsenal, but not exactly a big blow for Spurs, because it seems as though Richarlison is our number one target and a better fit anyway. Fabrizio Romano said via the Spurs web that Tottenham are really interested in Raphinha. They're discussing with Leeds a potential verbal proposal, so Tottenham are also in the race. He goes on to say that Antonio Conte is a big fan of the player, but at the same point, Tottenham know it is a really competitive deal with so many clubs involved. So Tottenham and Arsenal, both clubs, don't want to pay crazy money, which it looks as though Arsenal could be forced into. They want to pay the right money, and they don't want to enter into a bidding war. This is why, at the moment, all the talks are verbal on Tottenham's side, and Arsenal made an opening proposal, which was a written proposal in that case, which was very quickly rejected. Fabrizio Romano said yesterday that Tottenham are still working on a deal. I'm saying he said it yesterday because there's been a lot of developments today in Arsenal's side of this deal, so I wonder if this is still the case. But he said yesterday that Tottenham are still working on a deal. The £65 million asking price has only become stronger after Leeds agreed a deal to sell Calvin Phillips to Manchester City. Next week will be crucial for the deal. David Ornstein, like I mentioned, said Arsenal are the firm favourites to sign Raphinha. Matteo Moretto said last night that Arsenal are leading the race. There's no full agreement yet, but the parties are in constant contact and continue to get closer. Mundo Deportivo say that Leeds no longer consider Barcelona a viable destination for Raphinha. They're now negotiating with interested Premier League clubs and have ruled Barca out of the race again for the financial reasons. On Jed Spence, who it seems to be coming back and forth quicker than you could possibly imagine with this one. Fabrizio Romano said yesterday on Chris Cowland's YouTube channel that Jed Spence deal is still on, but again, there's no bid submitted yet. Now, we had quotes yesterday from Middlesbrough manager Chris Wilder, and we have more today. He has said that we're expecting that deal to happen. Tottenham want him, and we're prepared for that, but it's got to be right for us too. So Chris Wilder, the Middlesbrough manager, saying that he expects Jed Spence to join Tottenham this summer. He said the boy obviously doesn't want to come back here, which I've got absolutely no problem with, or no issue with. He obviously sees his future away from here, and he had a brilliant season last season. Wilder also said that from his point of view, negotiations between Middlesbrough's representatives and Tottenham stay between them, so he's not getting too involved with those ones. On the point of outgoings, and this man, Harry Winks, who could be a very important cog in a potential move for Richarlison, Fabrizio Romano said that the Harry Winks talks between Tottenham and Everton are going slow, because it could be a loan deal or he could be included in Richarlison talks. Now, the interesting piece in this one, I always say that player swap deals are, of course, they're much more difficult because it involves not only the negotiations between the two clubs, the valuation that both clubs have on both players, personal term negotiations for both players, and whether or not they want to make that move. It's just very complicated. It effectively makes a deal twice as hard. But Paul O'Keefe made the point on Twitter today that as part of the deal that saw Everton sign Richarlison from Watford a couple of years ago, any sale for Richarlison would see 10% of the fee go to Watford. So with Everton and their struggling financial situation, it will be in their interest to include Harry Winks, or indeed any Tottenham player, in a deal that to sell Richarlison to Spurs, which would of course lower the fee that Tottenham are paying, which would in turn lower the amount that they're losing within the deal. So let's say, for example, they value Richarlison at 60 million. Tottenham buy him for 60 million. 6 million of that goes to Watford. Whereas if we pay 40 million on Harry Winks, only 4 million of that goes to Watford, and Everton have a player in place. So that's why it would make a lot more sense for Everton to include a player in that. The bobble, again, that Everton source says that Everton are growing increasingly confident of agreeing a deal for Harry Winks. They remain in talks with Tottenham over a loan fee. 90 Minutes have said that 5 Premier League clubs have expressed an interest in Harry Winks. It is not just Everton. Brentford, Crystal Palace, Leicester and Wolves are also keen on the Spurs man. Tottenham have also offered Harry Winks to Rangers. A few other lesser or unknown reliability reports, and one of those is on the point of Tanguy Ndombele to Galatasaray, and it is Takvim, a Turkish source. Nick Nack, thank you for subscribing. They say that Tottenham have accepted Galatasaray's loan with option to buy for Tanguy Ndombele. Marco Conterio say that Tottenham are pushing hard to sign Longley. The player likes Antonio Conte. Calcio Mercato say that Gleison Bremer will discuss personal terms with interested clubs when he returns from holiday in Brazil. Inter and Tottenham are leading the race for his signature, and the centre-back likes both clubs. Il Messaggero say that Tottenham have made an approach for AS Roma midfielder Nicolo Zaniolo and been told they would accept a loan deal with an obligation to buy for 40 to 45 million euro. However, does that even matter? Because Alfredo Padula has said that reported Tottenham target Nicolo Zaniolo wants to stay in Italy this summer. Further reports link him to Juventus. Tutto Mercato say, and this is the breaking news that we got just before the stream, not exactly reliable, or the source isn't exactly reliable, but the type of story, it seems like a weird one to make up. Tutto Mercato say that an important meeting took place today between agent Giuseppe Rizzo and Tottenham sporting director Fabio Paratici. So we know Paratici is in Italy. He's in Milan, or at least he was yesterday, where he held talks over Brian Hill, Joe Rodon, Nicolo Zaniolo as well. So that part, Tutto Mercato definitely have right. But of course, a question remains over the rest of it because they aren't the most reliable source. But just out of interest, Rizzo is the owner of Gior Sports, an agency that represents clients such as Sandro Tonali, David Frattesi, Gianluca Mancini, Matteo Pessina, Brian Cristante, Andrea Petagna, Nicolo Ravello. Other names that aren't mentioned there, Daniel Maldini, the son of the AC Milan legend Paolo Maldini. So there's a lot of players that he represents. Kind of hard to pinpoint who Tottenham will be interested in exactly, but the main one the biggest player in there would be Sandro Tonali, but we're probably not. Please stop spamming the chat. I see you mentioning Pau Torres. Do you like Pau Torres? Says Wolf Mauler. Look, there's no point in spamming the chat. I'm just going to time you out. It ruins the experience for everybody else. So yeah, it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what player Tottenham would want to bring in there. Tonali being the biggest, but we seem to be set fine in the midfield positions. We don't seem to be pursuing another player in there. So it's kind of hard to say exactly who Tottenham are interested in there. As Kelvin says, he does manage Pierluigi Gallini, but I doubt a return is on the cards for the goalkeeper that I think is looking to join Atalanta. No, not Atalanta. He's looking to join Fiorentina, from what we heard earlier in the window. Before we take some questions from the chat, we'll put in as many questions as you want, unless you're being arts and you're asking about Pau Torres. Put in as many questions as you want, and I'll run through and I'll pick the best ones out, and I'll answer those. But while we're waiting for those to come through, we do have a poll in the chat. I asked, would you be happy if Tottenham signed Richarlison? And a fairly conclusive yes of the 625 people that voted. 85% of you will be happy with Richarlison. The other 15 wouldn't. If you are new to the channel as well, just as a reminder, please do hit that subscribe button down below. We've had 17 of you beautiful people hit that subscribe button during the stream, so let's keep that number going. Do make sure to hit that like button while you were there as well. We were on 264 likes with 850 watching. I'll be very disappointed if we can't get that to 350. So hit that like button while we're going through a couple of questions from the live chat. Linus says, what do you think about Cody Gakpo? Look, I'll be honest, I don't know too much about him. There's, for me, always a concern about players coming in from the Eredivisie. You know, Steven Bergwijn struggling to acclimatise. I think there's always been a bit of a trend with players, Vincent Janssen as well, kind of struggling to acclimatise. Now, when it does work, it really, really works. But I don't know enough about Gakpo to say if it would or not. I know with the report that Lyle Thomas put out yesterday, which I'm going to pull up here really quickly, because he had the goal contributions for Gakpo in that. The winger scored 21 and assisted 15 in all competitions last season, so 36 goal contributions is quite outrageous. But I'm not sure. First of all, how serious Tottenham are about that, especially if the Richarlison one continues to go. Chris Hart says ideal left back signing. It's Bastoni. It's Bastoni. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Lethal says, gut feeling, our interest in Jesus and Raphinha was only ever to drive up the price for Arsenal. Personally, I don't think so. We're going to be interested in players in a lot of positions. We're going to entertain talks and multiple players in the same position. So I don't think it was to drive up the price for Arsenal. Vanilla says, is Paratici still in Milan? I don't know personally, but if he's had a meeting today, you'd assume he is still in Italy. Steve says, do you think the Bastoni deal is dead? I do. Johnny says, is Hakimi an option? It doesn't really seem so. I asked Lyle Thomas about that on Wednesday in Last Word on Spurs, and he said, you wish. David says, red sauce or brown? Red sauce all day long. Bobby says, I've continuously said wing-back is a position I feel we should be concentrating on strengthening, as it'll be our biggest source of creativity. Any worries? Spence seems to be the only solid link. I agree with you on what you said there. I am slightly concerned by a few things in this. First of all, it seems as though this is one that Levy convinced Conte of. Levy's leading the negotiations. If Conte wants him, whether he was convinced or not, go for it anyway. But I would kind of rather if Conte had his own targets, if Paratici had his own targets, that they'd then go for it. And like you say, the lack of concrete links to other right wing backs. I see Joachim Mela mentioned in the chat. There's interest there. Tottenham reportedly scouted him a couple of weeks ago. There's interest in Klaus, as Kelvin mentions there, in some other players again mentioned by Lyle Thomas. It was Lens defender Klaus and where's this gone? What's the other name? Wilfred Singo from Torino, again, who we've had interest in quite a while. So there's two ways of looking at it for me. First of all, if he's the only link that we have, he's probably the number one target, and he's the one that we're very confident in getting. But with the way this is going, and potentially a deal falling through, potentially not getting it done, then I would be concerned about a lack of link elsewhere, if that makes sense. I love this question. A good one from Justin. Chinese or Indian takeaway? I would always have been Chinese, but a new Indian place has opened up near me, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I'll say Indian. I don't know. I don't think you have spice boxes or spice bags in England that you get from the Chinese. Those are incredible. And if you're ever in Ireland, you need to get a spice bag. But at the moment, I'd say Indian. Killian says, why aren't we going for Isco on a free? It's just not a priority position. We don't really need an attacking midfielder. I think it seems to be we have our positions that we're going to prioritise, and if certain opportunities arise in different positions for specific players, kind of like we did with Reguilon a couple of years ago, and like could have happened with Eriksen this season, I think we go for it then. But he's not a very big position to go for. Keith says pineapple and pizza. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Never. I found out my mother did that and I didn't speak to her for 3 months. Neil says, I noticed that none of the press got our transfers correct at the time of signing, only after the fact. Yeah, someone put it up on Twitter recently, I forget who it was, but they mentioned that of the last 10 players that we've signed, only one of them has been in the media more than a week before we signed him. That was Christian Romero. Yves Bissouma is, of course, the perfect example of that. You know, we heard on Tuesday deal agreed, and by Friday he's been announced. I'm kind of hoping that's the way the rest of our window will go. Bobby says Mancini is a left-footed central defender. Any chance it could be him Parati's after? It could be. It definitely could be. I kind of looked a lot into Roma last season when it looked like we'd be getting Paulo Fonseca, and Mancini and Cristante were two players that I really, really liked, and I suggested Tottenham could go for. So I definitely wouldn't be opposed to Mancini coming in. Linus says, how many signings do you think before Korea? I'd say two signings before Korea, a striker and probably Spence, let's be honest. Hopefully we can get a centre-back in by then, but I'm not convinced because the pursuit of a left centre-back seems to be going a bit sour, I suppose. Brunecast says, are there any real homegrown players under consideration besides Spence? No, really. There isn't, but aside from Harry Winks, there doesn't really seem to be any that are set to go out. So I'm not sure if it's big. If it's a big problem. We of course gained a player in the homegrown position by replacing Galini with Forster. So I don't think it is. I don't think it's a massive worry at this point. Killian says Cork or Dublin, neither. Stephen says Bremer value best position. It's believed to be in and around 40 million at a kind of centre back. There's been talk of him being able to play either side, but I don't want him to replace Romero, and we need a left-sided player or a left-footed player on the left side. Keith says, do we actually have scouts in Europe that's sending reports to Paratici? I'm not sure exactly how it works, but Paratici will have a good team of scouts around the place. He kind of himself is a scout. He likes to do a lot of his own work, and he has a very, very good knowledge of the lower leagues around Europe, kind of like Antonio Conte. So I'm sure he's doing a lot of that work, but he definitely has people in his team. Like, you know, Andy Scolding, we're bringing in from Rangers, having the knowledge of the English market with Greta Steinson that we're bringing in from Everton. He's building that team that he wants beneath him to identify better targets. Dan says, loving the jet fuel hoodie, as am I. Says, great content as always, mate. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that one. Zoe says, who do you think will win the World Cup? Not England. I'm just going to be honest, not England. Justin says, what is Ndika's price tag? I'm not sure. There's mentions of about 20 million for Ndika, which I would assume will be down to a contract expiring soon. Let's have a quick look here. His contract expires at the end of next season, so it would be a cut price deal if we were to pursue that, or for any team that might pursue that. So about 20 million. Dan says Brereton Diaz is homegrown, could be a decent option. People mentioning him quite a bit. Killian says, did or do you play ball? I did. I was a goalkeeper for about 10 years. I stopped playing kind of in and around lockdown. When I get back into it now, I am not as good. Jason says, wingbacks are most important in Conte's system, and it's only Spence who's closest so far. Well, of course, Perisic on the other side we've already brought in, but Spence seems to be the closest one on the right-hand side. Cassie says, what formation do you think we'll play next season? It'll stick as the 3-4-3. Hopefully we can have a bit more versatility, maybe go to 3-4-1-2 at times, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely crucial. Danny says, do you think Troy Parrott stays or goes out on loan next season? I can see him getting a loan to the Championship. I'm kind of hoping he goes to Swansea. There has been some links there, and to play with Michael Abafemi. So, you know, if he can get that link up, that's been going well for him in the national team, even better for us. Nick Knack says Perisic is 33. That's old for a modern wingback. It is, but Perisic is an absolute machine. And in terms of fitness numbers, running numbers, pace numbers, all of that sort of stuff, minutes played, last year was Perisic's best in his career. So his age isn't a concern for me. Craig says Mark Gahey is another homegrown player we've been linked with. He is, but doesn't really seem to be anything serious. Luke says Rolling Stones or the Beatles. To be honest, neither. I'll be honest, I don't listen to either of their music. Justin says, do you think we can get Koulibaly? 40 million and contract expiring. I don't. I imagine he'd have bigger options, bigger offers for him, and to be honest, I wouldn't want him to replace Eric Dyer in our team. And I know that's an outlandish thing to say. I know it's a ridiculous statement, but Eric Dyer is just our general at the back. He's been in fantastic form in the last year or two, but he leads that team. He's the captain that isn't the captain. If that makes sense. I wouldn't go for Koulibaly personally, and again, that may be a stupid thing to say, but I think we need Dyer. I really do. Zoe says dogs or cats. 110%, no question, no doubt. Don't even try and debate it with me. Dogs every day of the week. I've got 3. Linus says, who do you think is the signing of the summer? Perisic. I don't, but Haaland for whatever 50 million is probably the best. Hopefully Tottenham can beat that. Bobby says, what league do you think would be best to loan Dane Scarlett and Alfie Devine to? I'd say League One, because League One you wouldn't really notice the difference unless you're watching it as often as I am at work. The footballing ability and footballing quality between League One and League Two is absolutely massive difference. It's huge. There's a kind of physical aspect to League One, as well as the kind of trying to play football, which I think would suit both of them. Whereas League Two, it's just like Sunday League. It's go out, fight a few people, see who scores the most goals at the end of it. So I'd say League One for the two of them. AJ says, what do you think we'll win next season? I think we'll win a domestic cup, because I think Manchester City will go all out for the Champions League. I think Liverpool will go all out for the Premier League. Chelsea, we don't know where they're going to be. We don't know what they're going to be doing. So I think Tottenham can sneak in and get a domestic cup. We'll take one more question. Let's make it a good one. I see an Arsenal question, which is a good question, but I don't want to end the stream with an Arsenal question. But Jason, I'll say no. There we go. Cassie says, do you think Conte has made the correct signings, the signing to improve the squad and make them Champions League ready? I do. Yeah, I do, because like I've said quite a bit, the kind of difference between Antonio Conte and Mauricio Pochettino's recruitment with Pochettino, and it is epitomised by the signings of Ndombele and Lo Celso. He seemed to just buy players based on footballing ability, whereas Conte looks at everything, their adaptability, their attitude, their fitness, he looks at everything, and I fully trust who he's brought in. The mentality is a big one for him, and look, Yves Bissouma said at the start of the season he thinks he's the best midfielder in the Premier League. So I mean, he has to be good at something, right? It says Manny, my cat, says he's going to unsubscribe. That makes me sad. Actually, Brewcat there says, any hope into Ketelera? There's no real links to him. I would love absolutely nothing more. Well, I'd love... There are players I'd love more, but I would really love to see the Ketelera come to Tottenham, but it just doesn't seem realistic at the moment. But look, we will wrap it up there. There's 882 of you watching me ramble about cats, dogs, red sauce, and Antonio Conte, which is quite crazy. But please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. The majority of these streams are transfer focused, but we have a little bit of fun at the end with a bit of a Q&A. We run through all the latest reports, analysing targets, analysing the sources as part of the reports to give you context on what is true and what isn't. So if that does interest you, please do hit that subscribe button down below. We've hit 15,000 subscribers recently, which continues to blow my mind. So let's start on the road to 16k. Please do hit that like button down below, as I said. We've hit the magical mark at 350, so let's get that to 400 with 860 of you watching. There's no doubt we can get that to 400, so please do show that support down there. I actually want to see if there's any other Spurs content creators live, so we can do a bit of a raid. Oh, this is a perfect one. David Harris, the Irish Hotspur, is live. He's actually not on it, but Jack Kanicki is live on the Irish Hotspur. So I'm going to put the link into the chat. I'm going to absolutely spam it in there. I'm the only one who's allowed to spam the chat. You hear me? So what you need to do is hit that link in the chat, go over to David's stream or Jack's stream and just say Matt Hayes raid. Get over there and show some love, show some support, and show some some appreciation for a fellow Spurs fan. Pam says, Maddie, I love listening to you, but didn't know it was raining. I left my clean washing outside. Pam, I apologise. I apologise for rambling on for so long. But thank you very much for the kind words. Zoe, you have a great evening as well. But before everyone goes, make sure to click that link to go over to David or to Jack's stream, whoever it is hosting. We've got Ellie and Sean on there as well, so that is a fantastic panel. Make sure to go over there, say Matt Hayes Raid, hit those like and subscribe buttons as well to show some support to that channel. Come back here as well for our next stream. Don't forget to show the love here. I really do appreciate the nearly 3,000 of you who have tuned in over the last 45 or so minutes. It is massively appreciated. But for me, for now, and as always, thank you so much for watching.